Ethan's first love had a heavy bleeding during childbirth and needed panda blood urgently. He tied me up and took me to the ward while I was pregnant. Rain, I can't watch her die. The dead can't be resurrected, but we will have children again. I will treat you better in the future. So, I was forced to lie on the cold operating table. Unfortunately, I was unlucky and died from excessive blood transfusion. But I opened my eyes and was reborn again. Ethan excitedly held my hand. Rain, this time I will never hurt you at all. I was stunned. Could it be that he was also reborn? Ethan's first love, Miss Claire, sent me a photo of her and Ethan in the middle of the night. Late at night, the two of them sat intimately on the sofa and shared an ice cream cake. They didn't mind the freezing weather. Sister Rain, you know I'm pregnant now and I'm alone in China. I don't know anyone here. Today is my birthday. Ethan bought me an ice cream cake to celebrate my birthday. So it took a while. Don't worry, I'll ask him to come back to you right after we finish eating the cake. I can't let you two spend time together, right? The tea was full of tea, and the bitch was full of anger. I immediately sent this photo and the screenshot of the chat history to Ethan. With 5 big words, let's get a divorce. Then I blocked Ethan. It was so straightforward and decisive. If it were me in my previous life, I would never have done it. My memory is too deep. In my previous life, when I first received the malice from this first love, I hid in my bed and cried for a whole night. The next day, I pretended to casually mention this to Ethan, but he said, Claire's husband had some problems and it was not easy for her to return home alone while pregnant. It's really pitiful for her to celebrate her birthday alone, so I'll go and accompany her. If you mind, I'll take you with me next time? Since then, Ethan always talked about Claire. Claire was pregnant, and the two of them couldn't do anything. I naively thought that Ethan really felt sorry for his old classmate. Unexpectedly, Ethan and Claire actually teamed up to kill me. Ethan and I were in a free love relationship, and also a business marriage. I have never been in a relationship. I was raised in the palm of my family's hand. I met Ethan through a blind date. Because he was tall, handsome, and gentlemanly, I had a good impression of him. After a few times, we naturally started a relationship. But when it comes to that relationship, I always feel that it lacks a little meaning. Once, I asked Ethan to accompany me to a physical examination, and Ethan accidentally discovered that I have panda blood. He stared at the medical report with complicated eyes for a long time, and asked, Your blood type needs special attention. Why didn't you tell me before? I thought he was concerned about me, and never thought that he had been planning for a long time. Not long after that, Ethan proposed to me. I was not mentally prepared to enter into marriage, so I just laughed it off. I didn't expect that his family and my parents would join forces to instigate me, and Ethan was so enthusiastic about me that he almost pursued me relentlessly, so he and I entered the palace of marriage. During that time, I was held in Ethan's hands for fear of dropping him, and held in his mouth for fear of melting. My mother also joked with me, Ethan is like an ancestor. Ethan smiled and rubbed my head, isn't he an ancestor? I really fell in love with him. It's stupid, but it's true. I believe in love, but I never thought I could meet love. But Ethan made me feel that I had met it. I thought I was the luckiest person in the world. Until Claire returned home with a big belly. The day Claire returned to China was my birthday. In order to pick her up, Ethan lied to me that his company had an emergency meeting and stood me up. This incident, even until I died, all the things in my life flashed before my eyes like a slideshow, and I suddenly woke up. My death was not an accident. That day, I hadn't seen Ethan for a long time, and I asked him to go to the movies, and he agreed. He even wore a suit and tie, and prepared a bouquet of roses for me, which was very formal. I also thought that after watching the movie, I must tell him that I was pregnant. What movie do you want to watch? I said excitedly, the horror movie that was recently released is Rain. Ethan interrupted me, before going to the movie, do me a favor, okay? He said that Claire had a heavy bleeding after giving birth and urgently needed a blood transfusion. The smile on my face froze. What does it have to do with me? Rain, Claire also has panda blood. Ethan held my wrist and whispered, you are the only person I can think of now. I can't watch her die. I shook my head and refused, and he turned cold. Rain, it's just a blood transfusion, is it that difficult? Or are you still suspicious that there is something between me and Claire, so you don't want to help? I have quarreled with him many times because of him and Claire. But this time it's really not like that. A blood transfusion won't kill me, and helping can save a life, it's no big deal. But, I'm pregnant. I wanted to stay in the pleasant atmosphere and say this, but I didn't expect that telling Ethan this good news would be in this scene. I pursed my lips and frowned slightly, the child is not stable. The doctor suggested that I rest, not to mention blood transfusion. Ethan's grip on my hand gradually loosened. He rolled down the car window, took out a cigarette and lit it. I almost thought he was going to give up. But I never expected that he suddenly sighed, and his expression on his backlit face was elusive. The dead cannot be resurrected, but we will have children again. A bucket of ice water was poured over my head, and I shuddered all over. I suspected that I had heard it wrong and looked at him in disbelief, but I met his cold eyes. For the first time, I found that this man who had slept with me for 4 or 5 years was so strange, like a man-eating beast. He still wore a mask and pretended to be gentle. "Rain, don't worry, I will treat you better in the future." It turns out that his kindness to me was just a tool to exchange for benefits. I looked at him blankly, until he tied me up and took me to the hospital. The cold blood transfusion needle pierced my fragile skin, and blood oozed out from the tiny wound. The blood flowed through the infusion tube and entered another woman's body. I was tied up and lying on the bed. 2 evil beasts, without knowing whether they were hungry or full, were madly grabbing my vitality. 200 cc, 500 cc, 1000 cc. I knew I was dying, but I didn't figure it out until I died. It turns out that Ethan never loved me. Perhaps, from the beginning, he married me just for my panda blood. At the critical moment, I could save his lover's life. After sending a message to Ethan, I packed up my daily necessities as quickly as possible and left the home where Ethan and I had lived for several years. My mother saw me carrying a lot of bags and running out to pick me up in my pajamas. "Baby, did you quarrel with Ethan? Why are you home so late?" She didn't even care about the mask on her face, she just held my hand, her face full of worry. After I died in my previous life, my parents were devastated and almost cried to death at my funeral. Seeing my mother again, I couldn't help but feel tears in my eyes. "Be good." My mother thought I was wronged, touched my face and comforted me. "If there is anything, let's go home, we won't be wronged by Ethan's family." "Mom," I said firmly, "I want a divorce." My mother was dumbfounded. After all, during this period of time, in the eyes of others, Ethan and I were still a perfect match made in heaven. Even my friends around me said that I didn't know how many good deeds I did in my previous life and how much blessings I had, in exchange for an Ethan. Of course, my mother couldn't understand why I suddenly wanted to divorce. But fortunately, my mother stood by me unconditionally and only said, "If you feel uncomfortable, you can divorce if you want to. I also want to ask you and Dad for one thing." "What?" That's what my dad said before, asking me to go to the company to help. I pulled my mother's clothes and begged her, "I figured it out now, I want to go." My mother was overjoyed and immediately dragged me upstairs without saying a word. "Your dad is on a business trip and he will be back tomorrow. Wait until tomorrow and ask him to take you to the company." I turned on the silent mode when I went to bed at night, and when I opened my eyes I saw countless missed calls from unfamiliar numbers on my phone. The other party called tirelessly for more than 20 times, and it was only 10 minutes ago that they stopped. I thought Ethan would be very happy if I filed for divorce and gave him freedom. After all, he could naturally live with his first love. I never expected that when I went downstairs after washing up I saw him sitting on the sofa in my house. My mother even invited him to eat fruit. He was also trying to smooth things over. "Baby, are you awake? Ethan came here early in the morning. I guess he didn't sleep all night." He looked haggard and had dark circles under his eyes. "What's the big deal? We are going to get divorced, why bother?" I pouted at my mother and sat down at the dining table, which was a million miles away from the sofa. "Who knew that Ethan would come to me to please me? Rain, I bought you the buns from your favorite store, try them." He seemed to have become more haggard overnight. The circles under his eyes were dark, his eyes were tired, and there were red bloodshot under his eyes. Most importantly, he was still wearing the clothes in the photo. That is to say, after he received my text message, he may have been looking for me and didn't even have time to change his clothes. But I am not soft-hearted at all. Being soft-hearted is being cruel to yourself. I had a blank expression. "You should have received the text message I sent to you. I will let the lawyer send you the divorce agreement soon. If you cooperate with the future, we will get divorced directly. If you don't cooperate, I don't mind going through the legal procedures." Ethan's expression suddenly collapsed, and his face was full of dejection. "Rain, let's not get divorced, okay?" He looked pitiful, and there were some emotions in his eyes that I couldn't understand. "Forget it." I sneered. "Ethan, I don't like sharing the same husband with others, and I'm not so generous to forgive those who hurt me." I don't know where this sentence hit Ethan's vital point. He clenched his right hand into a fist and slammed the table hard. "Rain, this time I will never hurt you at all." "This time?" I suddenly understood the emotions in his eyes. They were regret and guilt. I know. He was reborn like me. The fact that Ethan was reborn cannot change any results. The betrayal is real, and it is also a fact that he caused me to die tragically in the hospital bed, which cannot be changed. I am determined to divorce. And in my heart, I think I am divorced. I do not reject any social occasions at all. I still remember that in my previous life, in order to play the role of a wife who takes care of her husband and children, I refused all social activities in my previous circle. My friends invited me once, twice, and 3 times, but I didn't go. Later, they simply gave up inviting me. Now that I plan to start my life again, I naturally have to get these relationships back. My best friend Yo-Yo's new boyfriend organized a swimming party as my first stop of coming out of the mountains. I put on my bikini again. Yo-Yo's eyes were amazed. Run, I haven't seen you wearing so many revealing clothes for a long time. Your figure is still as good as before. She took my hand and pulled me out. Look at you, you've been staying at home since you got married, and no one can be invited out. What's wrong this time? Why did you suddenly come to your senses and plan to go out with Seven? I told her that I was planning to divorce. Yo-Yo paused with a complicated look on her face. Have you thought about it? Isn't Ethan very good to you? As soon as she finished speaking, I saw a familiar figure from the other side of the swimming pool. It was Claire with a big belly. Her child should be more than 5 months old. Pregnancy does not affect her wearing a two-piece sexy swimsuit. In fact, she attracted the attention of many men in such a dress. TSK, Yo-Yo rolled her eyes and said, Claire, do you know her? Yo-Yo introduced, she is a distant relative of my boyfriend's family. She sticks to me like a leech and can't be shaken off. Every time there is such a situation, she insists on getting together, and all those men have been hooked up by her. You know the young master of the Liu family, he's a bit perverted. Claire is pregnant. Last time I heard them, you know, I was a little surprised. To be honest, my impression of Claire was just that she was a bit of a green tea. I never thought she would actually. Yo-Yo continued, besides, she's pregnant with a bastard, and we don't know whose it is. I was even more dumbfounded. Isn't she married? Bullshit. Yo-Yo rolled her eyes and said, I heard from my boyfriend that the Shen family used to be quite rich, but later on, they fell into poverty and relied on my boyfriend's family. Both of his parents work in their company, and they took a lot of money from their own pockets. They sent her out for graduate school. I guess they wanted to catch a rich husband, but not only did they fail, but they also brought back a child. She didn't tell me who the father of her child was. It's a mystery anyway. As soon as Yo-Yo finished speaking, she saw Claire holding a red wine glass and walking towards me. I pulled Yo-Yo's arm and wanted to leave. Claire blocked me directly. Sister Rain, what a coincidence, I actually met you here. Sister Rain, I'm so sorry for yesterday. Claire looked at me with a smile, looking weak and pitiful. Yesterday was my birthday. Ethan probably saw that I was too lonely here alone, so he came to accompany me. I laughed. You don't need to repeat what you said, people who don't know would think you are a repeater. Claire's smile froze and she said pitifully, Sister Rain, don't be angry, I didn't mean it. I was too lazy to pay attention to her and walked away. But she stuck to me and reached out to pull my arm. I just raised it lightly and heard a plop, and Claire, who was standing on the edge of the swimming pool, fell down. Yo-Yo was stunned. Is she sick? We were too close to each other just now, and no one except Yo-Yo could see clearly that she fell down by herself. Especially everyone had a preconceived notion that Claire was pregnant and would never joke about her own child. Strange eyes were immediately focused on me. A kind-hearted boy even jumped into the lake to rescue Claire, who was struggling. She was wet all over, sitting on the ground weakly, her eyes as red as a rabbit. Sister Rain, I didn't do anything, why do you treat me like this? If you really think I did something wrong, you can just tell me directly, I can change it. That look almost made me think I was an unforgivable villain. Not to mention being a bystander. Did you see what happened just now? She seems to be the daughter of Rain's family. She hasn't been out much since she got married. I didn't expect her to be so excessive, even attacking pregnant women. You don't know this, everyone in the circle knows that she was a bully in high school. No wonder. The rumors are getting more and more exaggerated. Yo-Yo stood up to speak for me first. My God, where does this tea smell come from, so strong? It was obviously you who jumped down just now, why do you blame my bower? Yo-Yo, how can you say that? Claire was very aggrieved. You and Rain are good friends, of course you stand on her side. After saying that, she burst into tears. Almost everyone who was partying in the pool came over, pointing at me. I couldn't bear it anymore. I simply walked directly to Claire and squatted down. Well, now everyone thinks I pushed her down, right? Maybe my expression was too calm, and the noisy environment suddenly quieted down. I spread my hands, shrugged, and pushed forward. With a snap, Claire was pushed into the pool by me. There was an uproar at the scene. Since everyone thinks so, wouldn't it be a big loss if I don't really push her? I stood up and looked down at Claire struggling in the pool and even choked on several mouthfuls of water. Rain, you are too much, she was furious. After all, under the deterrence of my powerful aura, no one jumped down to save her. Until the crowd suddenly made way, a familiar figure jumped down and hugged Claire sideways. Claire hugged Ethan's neck, her eyes red. Ethan, I seem to have made Sister Rain unhappy. You. This tea smell is too strong. Desperate couple, was wet and stood in front of me in a mess. Especially Claire looking at me with provocation. After all, from the outside Ethan and I are still husband and wife. So even Yo-Yo gently poked my arm. What's wrong with Ethan? Claire even exaggeratedly pulled the corner of Ethan's clothes. brother Ethan, don't blame Sister Rain, I just didn't stand firmly and accidentally fell down. I crossed my arms and stared at Ethan expressionlessly. In fact, I was looking forward to how Ethan would react. After all, he was also reborn. And 2 days ago, he swore to me so confidently that he would never hurt me this time. Ethan's face was pale, holding Claire's hand and said, Rain, Claire she. He still seemed to want to argue for Claire. But when he met my overly cold eyes, he swallowed all the words of rebuttal and said, after all, she is still pregnant. I'm afraid she will catch a cold. I'll take her to change clothes first. Whatever you want. I shrugged and in front of everyone, I said word by word, anyway, we are both going to get divorced. Everyone present was instantly in an uproar. Ethan's face was even paler. I don't know who posted the video of me bullying Claire online. But I can guess a thing or two without checking. I instantly became the target of public criticism, and almost all the voices on the internet said that I bullied pregnant women. Someone also dug up the video of me bullying Claire in high school, but in fact I was bullied by Claire at that time, so I led my people to get back at her and was deliberately recorded. It's simply impossible to defend myself. But it doesn't matter this time, I won't let myself be unable to defend myself. My affairs have affected the stock prices of Ethan's family and my family at the same time. Overnight, it plummeted. I received a call from Ethan's mother, which was also under my control. Rain. Ethan's mother smiled lovingly, look, you and Ethan have been married for so many years. Your aunt knows you better than anyone. We also know that you are sensible and sensible. So now this matter has become so big that it is no longer under our control. We have discussed it. See if this can work. She held the hot teacup and said without any guilt or hesitation on her face, let's get a divorce certificate online first. After the storm is over, you two should live your life behind closed doors. How about it? Don't worry, this is just a fake divorce. After the storm is over, no one will pay attention to it anymore. I rubbed my palms with a faint smile on my lips. After Ethan's mother finished speaking, she slowly said, Aunt, it's okay. I did implicate Ethan's family in this matter. I sighed very regretful, I have been with Ethan for so many years, and I am very grateful for the care and concern of my aunt and uncle. With such a big difficulty now, how can the power accumulated by Ethan's family for many years be wiped out overnight? I pushed the divorce agreement out. If it is a fake divorce and someone digs it out, it will probably cause a bigger storm. I have signed the divorce agreement. Aunt just needs to take this copy to Ethan to sign, and I will issue a statement that this matter has nothing to do with Ethan's family. Ethan's mother couldn't hide her joy, took the divorce agreement, and read it from beginning to end. The premarital property belongs to each of us, and the marital property is half for me and Ethan, which is very fair and reasonable. I didn't ask for any shares of Ethan's family. Ethan's mother made a prompt decision without even trying to save face, okay, I'll go back and ask Ethan to sign it. As a result, just as Ethan's mother stood up, the divorce agreement in her hand was intercepted by a figure that suddenly jumped out. With a bang, the divorce agreement was torn in half. Ethan. What are you doing? Ethan's mother's face instantly became very ugly. I will never divorce. Ethan was very determined. Mom, what are you thinking? Rain and I are fine, why divorce? What do you mean fine? Ethan's mother's face turned cold. Do you know how bad our stock market is now? If this goes on, your father and I will have worked hard for decades and all our efforts will be in vain. Do you know what it means to run away when disaster strikes? Ethan's mother lowered her voice and said viciously, Ethan, do you want this endless wealth and glory, or your worthless love? You decide for yourself. Ethan's face turned red because of what she said, and his hands holding the 2 pieces of waste paper trembled slightly. He turned his head and met my eyes. I actually saw his eyes slightly red and his eyes were full of reluctance and tenderness. But at the moment, I only felt, oh, so disgusting. After being silent for an unknown period of time, Ethan closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He didn't dare to look at me but said, I know. I will sign. If he lives again, I will still not be his first choice in life. The so-called never hurting me is still a joke. Very good. This proves that my plan was not wrong at all. 10 after the divorce notice was issued, Ethan's family even issued a statement. It said that the pregnant woman was actually a good friend of Ethan. Ethan didn't know about my bullying before. After learning about it, he divorced me, and in order to apologize, he took Claire to Ethan's house to take care of her until she gave birth smoothly. Yo-Yo was so angry that her eyes rolled up to the sky. Isn't everyone in Ethan's family a histrionic personality? They all help others raise children? They are sick. I handled the company affairs calmly. Don't worry, they won't be laughing for too long. Because I already had a foundation, I got started with the company affairs very quickly. I have even negotiated several cooperations with the previous relationships. But not many people have known about it yet. Of course, my incident also made those partners hesitate, but because of the good relationship, they expressed their willingness to wait a little longer to see if I can solve this matter perfectly. When the rumors on the internet have extended to real life, I know that I can't wait any longer. Outside the dinner venue, as soon as I got out of the car, countless strange eyes were cast at me. Some people who followed the car even stayed outside the gate and shouted, "Bullying girl, die." I wore a light blue long dress that dragged on the ground and walked in slowly and elegantly. Claire was already showing her pregnancy, and the bright red dress made her little white flower look more bright. Seeing me coming in, she immediately pulled a group of people around her. "Sister Rain, you are also attending the dinner. I'm so sorry about what happened before. I never thought that someone would post the video online and cause you so much trouble." She lowered her eyes pitifully, feeling very wronged. The people on the side stood up for her. "Claire, you are too kind. You are being sold and still counting money. It was originally Miss Rain who hit someone first and was wrong. She didn't apologize, so why are you still being humble?" "Yes, so many people are here, Miss Rain, you should apologize to Claire, otherwise." Being surrounded by everyone, I felt a little uncomfortable, frowning and was about to fight back, but the red wine glass in my hand was suddenly touched lightly. A face that I had only seen on TV appeared in front of me. The Ian family, the top family in the circle. The eldest son of the Ian family, Ian. He was sent abroad to study when he was very young. After graduation, he became famous on Wall Street in just 3 years and became the diamond bachelor in the hearts of many girls. After returning to China, he directly inherited Ian's family's billions of assets and led Ian's family out of China and into the world. In short, the current reputation of their Ian family is not comparable to any family present. He is also my cooperation target this time. Miss Rain. His voice was slightly hoarse when he spoke, and his face, which was always expressionless, had a hint of smile. He said, "It's very famous recently." To be honest, I was a little embarrassed. But I am very grateful to Ian for taking me out of the siege of the crowd. Although I could have gotten out of it myself. He was a little redundant. But seeing that he was the partner I wanted to capture, I didn't say anything. Ian and I had a very speculative chat. Many of our investment ideas coincided. If Chang Yao Jin hadn't suddenly appeared to interrupt, I even felt that we would have reached a cooperation agreement soon. Claire took Ethan's hand and came over. Seeing me, Ethan pulled his hand out of Claire's arm unnaturally. "Rain." His old face was red with shame. I smiled. "Ethan, you still know how to be embarrassed." Claire smiled unhappily. "Sister Rain, although I know that you are focusing on your career now, I still want to give you a few words of advice. After all, your family is now in a state of decline because of your affairs, and you don't have a good husband to rely on. You still have to find a chance to marry yourself off." Claire said, "It's not good for a woman to be too strong. Finding a good husband is more important than anything else." Ian watched the show from the side and sneered softly when he heard it. I glared at him and said, "Yes, but I think that finding any husband is not as good as finding a husband snatched from someone else, right?" Ian even laughed without disguising it. Ethan was even more embarrassed and quickly changed the subject. "Mr. Ian, the cooperation you want to discuss. This is a private party, so we won't talk about business." Ian interrupted him and took the red wine glass from my hand. "Beautiful Miss Rain, do you need me to refill your glass?" Claire and Ethan's faces became very ugly at the same time. Especially Ethan. He widened his eyes, staring at Ian's back in disbelief, and then grabbed my arm. He asked, "Rain, so the reason you want to divorce me is actually because of him?" I rolled my eyes. "You think too much. Aren't you the one who wants a divorce later?" Ethan was shaking with anger and was stunned when he heard this. Claire grabbed his arm and said coquettishly, "Brother Ethan, don't worry, I will go and talk to Mr. Ian, and I will definitely help you get the cooperation." At the beginning of the banquet, there was a review of the glorious history of the Ian family. The huge LED screen played the continuous development of the Ian family over the years. Yo-Yo asked me while shaking her legs, "Are you sure you want to do it in this kind of situation? What if Ian's family is unhappy and doesn't want to cooperate with you? Then find another one." I took a sip of red wine and said lightly, "It's just one Ian's family. If it's gone, there are thousands of Ian's families. What's there to be afraid of?" As soon as I finished speaking, the lights in the venue suddenly dimmed. The screen also suddenly went black. Not far away, Claire, who was good at dancing, was toasting Ian with a face full of flattery, but her smiling face suddenly appeared on the big screen. The picture quality was very blurry because I captured it from the surveillance camera. But it was clear enough to see that on that day, it was not me who pushed Claire into the pool at the beginning. She jumped in on her own initiative. In the banquet hall, people had already started to talk about it. Claire's face turned pale, and she explained in panic, "This must have been synthesized to frame me." But the video did not end. Next, there was the evidence that Claire put the video of me pushing her into the pool online. This video put Ethan's family and our Rain family in jail at the same time, and the stock price plummeted. It also forced Ethan to divorce me. Continuing, there was the video of Claire bullying her classmates. Although Claire and I were not in the same class in high school, we were in the same school. At that time, Claire had not yet attached herself to Yo-Yo's boyfriend's family, so she was not called Claire. She kept a non-mainstream hairstyle and acted like a social girl all day, leading a large group of sisters to bully students in the school. When I first transferred there, she collected protection money once. So I took a few good friends and sisters to threaten her severely. I didn't expect that the rumors about me bullying people would spread like this, but in fact, Claire was the one who really bullied others. In the video, she cut off all the girls' hair with scissors and scratched the girl's beautiful face with a knife, just because she looked better than her. One crisp slap after another fell on other people's faces mercilessly. The dirty words she cursed in her mouth were even more unbearable. There was no trace of the little white flower she pretended to be now. At this moment, Claire stood completely naked in public. Until the videos of her being a drinking companion and a mistress abroad appeared in the video, she finally couldn't hold back and collapsed. Stop it, stop it. Who synthesized this? This is not me, this is not me. She screamed madly. She rushed to the stage and threw herself in front of the big screen. The moment the lights came on, she looked at every pair of scrutinizing eyes in the audience and collapsed on the ground. At this time, a sloppy man who looked to be in his 50s or 60s suddenly rushed in. He ran while laughing loudly. Claire, you little bitch, I finally found you. You dare to steal my money and run around while pregnant with my child, I will beat you to death. He directly raised the microphone pole beside him and hit Claire hard. 13 When the farce began, those videos were also played online simultaneously. Almost overnight, the wind direction suddenly changed. Claire became the target of public criticism, and I was criticized too much before, but I was loved by netizens, and Rain's stock price skyrocketed instantly. Ethan's stock, which had recovered, fell into the ground overnight. Even more cruel than the last time. In just a few days, I signed countless contracts and expanded Rain's business territory again. I also took over Ian's family. After signing, Ian and I walked out of the cafe together, but were blocked by a figure. It was Ethan's mother. She held my hand excitedly, with a sincere face. Rain, we said before that after the storm is over, you and Ethan will continue to live your own lives behind closed doors. Is this still true? I couldn't help but sneer. Not far away, Ethan was also standing. But he probably felt embarrassed and didn't dare to come over. Auntie, do you think I'm stupid? I spread my hands and said bluntly, didn't you say that when disaster strikes, everyone will flee? You have already fled, why do you come back to find me, a burden? Isn't it because you were blinded by Claire before? Ethan's mother said viciously, it's all because of that bitch. She actually did that job abroad. It's so disgusting, I feel sad. Claire is indeed wrong, but is his Ethan family wrong? Ethan's family is really selfish from top to bottom, without exception. I pushed Ethan's mother's hand away coldly. Auntie, Ethan and I are divorced. Please don't disturb my life anymore. Being protected by Ian, I took a few steps forward, passing by Ethan. But he suddenly called me, Rain. You? He hesitated for a long time before blurting out, why do you suddenly stop loving me? Yes. In Ethan's eyes, one day, I asked for a divorce from him. Those years of my silent struggle and hardship seemed insignificant to him. I closed my eyes, smiled softly, and replied to him, Ethan, do you know? Claire's blood is enough. I said word by word, but she wanted my life, so she colluded with the doctor in advance and kept squeezing and draining my vitality from my body, until I stopped breathing. You thought it was just a blood transfusion, you thought you did nothing wrong. I looked at him, crying with blood in my eyes, but you are an accomplice. He suddenly widened his eyes and suddenly understood, you also. The next second, he covered his face dejectedly and squatted down, I'm sorry, Rain, I don't want to hurt you. But what's the point of saying this now? It's all over. At least I'm relieved. 14 The next time I heard about Claire, it was Yo-Yo's boyfriend who said it. He said Claire was taken back abroad by the old man, gave birth to a stillborn child, and then was beaten by the old man every day and sent out to entertain customers. Not long after, she died in bed. Ethan's family fell into bankruptcy because of the public opinion that time, and all the family property was confiscated. The family of 3 moved into a rented room of less than 50 square meters and lived a completely different life from before. I met Ethan once later. He was delivering food. The suit jacket that used to be worth tens of thousands of yuan was replaced by a smelly t-shirt worth dozens of yuan. His face was untidy and there was no trace of refinement. What he sent was exactly the Valentine's Day roses that Ian gave me. When Ian took it, I looked out from inside the house and met his eyes. He seemed to be electrocuted, avoiding my sight in a panic and fled from here as quickly as possible. What are you looking at? Ian handed me the roses, your favorite white roses, am I right? Not bad. I raised my eyebrows proudly and said, remember 9.99 next time. Yes, my dear wife. He kissed me on the face. The sunlight outside the house shone on the 99 white roses. It was particularly dazzling.